the Clerk of Parliament did, as we understand, simply respect his constitutional obligation. Article 112, Clause 5 says, whenever a vacancy occurs in Parliament, the Clerk to Parliament shall notify the Electoral Commission in writing within 7 days after the vacancy occurred. And a by-election shall be held within 30 days after the vacancy occurred. The Clerk wrote to the Electoral Commission saying a vacancy has occurred by reason of the judgments of the High Court in Tamale, invalidating the elections in Kpandai and ordering a rerun in 30 days. After he did that, and even the petitioner's lawyers felt the Electoral Commission was delaying, they had filed processes in court to hold the Electoral Commission for contempt. Did the Electoral Commission do anything wrong? And what do you say about the Supreme Court's intervention in suspending the December 30 rerun?
Thanks for having me on, Samson. I totally agree with the position.
Hello, Prof.
Hello. Can you hear me? Hello?
Prof, unmute your mic.
Unmute?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So I'm saying that I completely agree with Mr. Benson's position. And so for that matter, my point is that, again, I also agree with the position that it is not the EC that should be faulted here. For the EC, so long as the Clerk of Parliament has issued that letter to the office of the EC, I think that they are compelled to follow the direction that has been issued from Parliament. And so at the end of the day, the fault should not be laid at the doorsteps of the EC. The fault should rather come from Parliament. The Speaker made a ruling referring to the mandatory 7
days.
The 7 days stay, which was respected by Parliament. But the matter has been, the appeal has been taken to the Court of Appeal, and then the NPP has proceeded to go to the Supreme Court for that decision by the High Court to be quashed. I think that here the matter should have stayed, and the Member of Parliament, Matthew Nimdam, should have been allowed to remain in his seat until one of the decisions, whether the Supreme Court one or the Court of Appeal one, is determined, so as to bring finality to the matter before the EC should proceed. I think that is the proper way that the process should have gone.
So what do you make of the Supreme Court's intervention by the suspension?
It is a proper thing to do. I think that the Supreme Court made the right decision. And so you can see how the NDC candidate was trying to frustrate the process by, I think, in my opinion, evading service. And so the court making that decision that the NDC member should be served, and then going ahead to say that a date should be set for the matter to be determined before the EC can go ahead is right, so that when the matter is determined on after January 13, then we can be clear that this person should remain in Parliament, which is likely to maybe completely abolish the process for the election process at all. Because if at the end of the day the decision by the Supreme Court quashes that of the High Court, then Matthew Nimdam will continue as the Member of Parliament for Kpandai. So it will bring finality to the matter. And so it calls for making sure that the process are followed, there's a little bit of patience applied, and then the matter can be resolved in a peaceful manner.
Right. Dr. Kojo Asante, I don't know where you stand with this. He said both of them are saying things should have been slowed, Parliament should have, been restrained. But the very day the judgment was delivered, even though by law, statutorily, 7 days ought to have been allowed to elapse before you can attack the individual. The very day the judgment was delivered, was it that same day or the next day in Parliament, he was being chased out. And guess who were the people championing he being not being qualified to come into the House? Lawyers.
Those defending Kwesi.
Well, thank you very much, and a very good morning to viewers and listeners. First of all, for me, the Kpandai case is very important for many, many reasons. And it's not just the Kpandai case, but almost all the cases that at the end of 2024 went trying to determine the collation of results and all of that. I think we have to find time and bring all those cases together because we have a huge governance challenge. And myself, I mean, you have been involved in some of the work we did from 2023 to 2024, trying to shorten the time for adjudicating parliamentary petitions. But we have not fixed these problems around the results matrix, and it's impacting our governance processes. So in the last parliament, because you had almost a hung parliament, you had very serious disruptions. Who was the speaker, who was majority, who was minority, and then you get all these vacation of seats problems that were coming up. So it goes back to what the processes are and how do we ensure that those processes don't negatively impact on the way we govern our space. At the moment, there are just too many gaps. Some of that has to be filled by legislation, either through the Electoral Commission's own CI processes or the rules of court or that, but the gaps remain. So for me, the common sense is that once you are adjudicating a process and you know that appeals processes or it hasn't run its course, then by default, you have to create room for those processes to be finished. Because what it does is that it incentivizes, right, very bad political behavior. And then if people want to sort of take advantage of the process, they can sort of engineer processes around that creates a lot of confusion. So for me, I think there's a lot to be addressed in terms of all the gaps around that. But there are two other fundamental issues that I want to put on the table. One is the management of elections itself. From the case itself, there is a sense that the Electoral Commission's officials and their conduct at elections are something that really we have to pay attention. And how does the Electoral Commission then take the step forward in holding those people accountable? So for me, for instance, after this process, the Electoral Commission should be instituting some sort of an inquiry into what has happened so that those, whether they are temporary officers or whatever, are held accountable. Because what we did in 2012, putting in place a biometric system, was for a very, very specific purpose.
In this case, it was not the Electoral Commission officers who were to blame.
I mean, no.
The blame was heaped on party tax that were organized to disrupt the process.
No, if you look at the what was presented as the irregularities, particularly the completion of the pink sheets.
Yes, that was also an issue. Correct.
Exactly. Yeah. And the consistent inconsistencies, right, of the totals. It's a huge problem because the whole idea of the biometric verification is that you match verification with the number of ballots in the ballot box. So if you are recording, discrepancies there consistently, even if it's 40 polling stations out of 100 or something, that is significant. And that shouldn't be happening at all. There's no way
of the EC.
There's no way that should be happening at all. So it is not enough that it is about going to organize another election. We have to come to the bottom of it. Who exactly was recording these things? How is it that they got it wrong?
Part of the EC's defense was that don't depend on arithmetic errors to want to seek to overturn an election.
No, but that is actually problematic. And the third issue I'll come to. But that is actually very problematic. The EC, for example, committed to publish polling station results, both in the 2020 election and 2024 elections. As of today, we've not published those results. We have not published results of polling station level in the Fourth Republic. We have countries that we don't consider as democracies who publish polling station results. Because if you do not expose that level of transparency, people will continue to have schemes. We have to get to the point where we can trust. There's all the machinations and things you're finding. It's because people are always mistrusting the process. And the only way you can is to bring sunshine to the process. And we need to get to that point. So for me, it's, as I said, it's not enough. They have to take it forward and find out what exactly happened, who is responsible for what, and hold them accountable. The third point, our jurisprudence is developing around these matters, and it's not only Ghana. This is happening in all of Africa. It remains inconsistent. So the big question about what is a valid election? What is an election that has integrity? For at least maybe a couple of decades, maybe 2 decades now, a lot of the election petitions, particularly in West Africa, has focused on election day and then the outcome of the results. The process issues, and even in the MPP's case in 2013, when it tried to challenge the irregularities, as substantively a problem for the validity of the elections. That was not accepted. You recall the jurisprudence around that. In 2020, we had a similar. It was very procedural, but the question it keeps coming up: how is an election valid if a lot of the process is substantial that could completely invalidate an election? Fortunately for us, the parliamentary petition, PNDC Law 284 and Section 16 and so on, is very detailed as to the process. So it's not enough for you to say, oh, we can count the results. If substantially the process to the outcome is corrupted, then you can invalidate the results.
Okay.
So for me, the reason why I'm just spending time on this is that we need to get our jurisprudence around the validity of our elections consistent across both presidential and parliamentary elections. Because if we don't, it will begin to undermine our trust in the democratic process. Then we are very much in trouble.
Something 1 minute.